Welcome to episode 9 of the SNARLcast about indie war games and their design, coming to you from Snarling Badger Studios. I'm Adam, and I'm here with Vince. How you doing, Vince?
Oh my gosh, Adam, I am doing fan-freaking-tastic. Are you kidding me? I am ready to bring the energy today because we're going to talk about our new game, my man, that just launched this last weekend. And
Indeed.
I am very excited.
So that's the episode's topic. If for this particular episode is about our new game from Snarling Badger Studios, Rain in Iron, which is different than our original game, which was called Rain in Hell. But we're going to talk about the similarities and such in a moment. But first, how are you doing? How have things been? I know you've been traveling a lot. You went to, since our last recording, you went to Vegas 2 times, 3 times? How many times have you been in Vegas?
Oh my God, yes. It has been insane, Adam, no joke. I've been on the road. I've been in 5 different cities in the past 2 weeks, work trips for all my different and sundry jobs. I've just lived out of hotels for 8 days straight. I'm also finishing up currently writing the Art of book. I'm almost done with that as we're recording this. Obviously we're launching our new book. It is just, also I'll just say here where I'm not that this is incredibly relevant, but, this will come out by the time people will know. John and I are going to do an RPG podcast. And so I've also been working behind the scenes on that. And of course doing everything, John Ninas, sorry.
John Ninas, AKA Ninjon.
That's right. So, my life is something like hell, I think is what I would say, but it's a good time. It's a good time.
Well, I mean, Lord knows both of us, we do this to ourselves. It's a bit
absolutely.
We could just stay home and watch, I don't know, sports or something like that, I guess, on the TV. I don't know. But we don't do that. We just we like to keep busy. One of the trips though to Vegas, I don't know, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I went to Dogma 48, which was a very cool event out at Vierco's Vault. Which is a museum that'll be opening soon out there. It's a miniature collection of a truly incredible miniature collection.
Okay. It's a big miniature museum, basically.
That's right. Yeah. And I got to tour Gary's collection and see actually everything, or well, not everything, but maybe 60-70% of what he had. And I mean, it's mind blowing. Every miniature artist you think of that you're like, yeah, they're an amazing artist. He's got tons of pieces from, right? It's just, it's wild. It is thousands of pieces, not to mention unique other sculpts and things like that. He has these sort of 1-to-1 life-size Loki and the Terminator and Spider-Man, these ultra crazy realistic 1-to-1 from the torso up things. It's incredible. It's truly incredible. This was a 48-hour event where a bunch of artists got together. We all painted. It's modeled after similar events in Europe that have happened for a couple of years, and you basically have sort of 2 days to get together and do a crazy project, start to finish. And
each of you doing your own separate projects. You're not working together on one project.
No, that's right. Everybody, you bring your own crazy project or painting or thing you want to do, and you got 2 days to do it.
And Sam was there. Sam Lenz was there, and
Sam, our buddy Ben Cantor was also there.
Oh, nice. Raven was there.
Several people. Raven was there. Yes. David Diamondstone, Matt DiPietro. Several people there, and more. I'm forgetting people. I apologize, but just there was a lot of people there.
And then at nights, you guys would stop painting, and then you would all go into Vegas and gamble and drink, right?
Oh my God, no! Literally did not go to the Strip at all.
I wouldn't think so.
This is the second time this month I was in Vegas, and I spent a bunch of time in a casino on the first trip, so I'm good. I never gamble, anyways. I don't drink. I don't like people, and I don't like noise. So Vegas doesn't hold a great deal of allure for me. We did go to a cool Szechuan restaurant though that was very authentic and wonderful and delicious. So that was good.
Nice, yeah. What have I been doing? I don't know, getting things ready for the launch of the game. I had my good friend Dave from bottleandspool.com. I had him 3D print me some robots for the game, and I painted those up. And They are you're going to see them in the videos that I'll be making. That well, as this is recorded, the game is not out yet. When this is dropped, it will be out, so people will know. But the
Yes, in the
videos,
future where you
right,
are, both of
right,
our videos will be out where we paint robots. That's
yes,
right.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I've already painted mine. I'm going to be using them in the video where I show like in-game footage type stuff. Whereas
Ah,
you're
yeah,
making a
yeah.
video about how to paint robots.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
which
right.
is already yours is already made, mine is not. So that's where we flip back from the future to where you've already got it done and I don't yet. But it'll all be there when you guys hear this. Let's just say that. It
Everything is there and waiting for you. So many resources. It's
it's
incredible.
it's all there and not there at this current time in history as we are
Yes.
listening to it. Well, as we're saying it, not when you're listening to it. Anyway, so I've been doing that. And then also prepping for because the week after the game comes out. So basically, this comes out on a Monday, and then at the end of that week that this comes out is Tabletop Minions Expo, which will be more travel for Vince because you're coming over to that. First, you're going and hanging out with, I think, Scott and John.
That's right. Yep.
Yep,
We're going to do some recording. Yep.
and then coming from there to hear where I am, and then we'll have a small little convention, Tabletop Minions Expo. If you're hearing this before the 7th or 8th of June, you can still come. You can still come and hang out.
That's
It'll be
right.
a
And also,
lot of fun.
myself, Sam, and Raven will all be teaching miniature painting classes there. And as we're recording this, there are still some spots left. So
Mhm.
if you're there on this Monday and you're hearing it, you can make your way up to Oshkosh the weekend after this comes out. You should
Mhm.
come hang out. It's going to be a
That's
lot of
in
fun. Lots of chance. The first chance to play Rain and Iron but to have a demo game will be there too.
yeah, and that's in Wisconsin, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. There is an Oshkosh, Nebraska. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
It
Oh,
is,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Well, you guys are the famous one.
We're the bigger one and famous one. Yes, I mean famous just for the pants or whatever the Oshkosh Bagosh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's famous.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, that's what I've been doing. Otherwise, what else have I been working on? I painted some mechs on Twitch. I've been working on some mechs that I bought at Adepticon. They're from Flames of Orion, which is a cool indie mech game by Steve from the Hive Scum podcast. As we're recording this, I think last weekend previous to this was the Under the Dice Fest in Connecticut. I'm 98% sure it's in Connecticut. It's
Sure.
Connecticut or Massachusetts, but yeah. And that
Somewhere in the
was
New England area.
exactly, yeah. And it's also a cool indie convention, way cooler than mine, like by a lot, for at least what the pictures look like. There's going to be no dungeon synth music being played live at TMX, so that already puts us behind the eight ball.
Oh,
But
that you know about. I'm just gonna.
that's
I'm bringing a little Bluetooth speaker in my phone, and we're cranking it up.
That's not a okay. That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, they are. They run a big, huge. They have this convention. It's not huge, but it's I don't know. It's 150, 200 people maybe, and they
Cool.
have I think the world's largest Mordheim event, the
Oh wow.
New England Mordheim Open or NEMO. They had I believe 50 or 60 tables, so that's a 100 to 120 people or whatever. I don't know.
Good God.
Yeah. So that's also going on there. So that's very cool. So that was going on a little while ago. TMX is coming up very soon. But the only reason I mentioned Under the Dice is because I was painting the mechs that I got from Steve at Adepticon. The last episode that we talked to the folks from Buer Games, that was well received and people enjoyed that. They're doing, I think, pretty well. I think the Kickstarter maybe ends as we're recording this. It might end tomorrow or the next day. I don't know. I think it's very close to being done
Gotcha.
for 1490 Doom. So not the Kickstarter, sorry, Game Found for 1490 Doom. So hopefully, if you wanted to get in on that, you did. What have you been painting? I mean, besides the going to Vegas and painting at the fancy museum.
Yeah. I did paint something in Vegas.
Mhm.
I was actually done. It was funny too because you saw the pictures and you sent me like the pictures of all the models together.
Yeah.
So I had to leave early because again I had to go straight from that to a work trip. So I just like left my model with Sam and I was like, "Here you go, Sam. This is for you," and he can just have that. And I was like, that way he can take a picture of it or something. Plus, Sam doesn't have anything I painted, so I wanted him to have something.
Mhm.
And you sent me a picture that was like, is one of these two yours? And I was like, yeah, it's that one because you were like, it felt like you. I was, oh, well, that's nice.
Well, I mean, if you know a person and you see a lot of their work and they've been doing it for a while, people develop a style. Like I could tell
Yeah,
which one
sure.
was Sam's too. I could
Oh,
instantly tell
sure.
which one was Sam's, and I'm like, I'm sure that either this one or this one it was Vince's, and I wasn't sure, but I was guessing on the one on the bottom that I sent you, and that was the one. So,
Yeah, that's right.
but yeah, that's. But have you been doing any other kind of stuff
I
since?
have, yeah, no, absolutely. I'm painting this wonderful little dwarf from Spira Mirabilis from Mirabilis. I don't know how you say it from
Mm.
that collection. I'm actually doing that for Kit from Game Envy. He's a very nice guy,
Oh yeah,
and so it's like a beautiful, beautiful bust. And I've been recording and making a bunch of videos out of it. Obviously, our viewers can't see it, but they will in the future when it comes out in little in video form.
is he
Um,
commissioning you to paint it or?
he it's sort of a long story,
Okay,
but at any rate, let's just say I'm doing it for a friend.
okay, that's cool.
Let's just say we're in the words of Bing Crosby, let's say we're doing it for an old friend in the army. How about
There
that?
you go. There you go.
And but I also am very excited because I'm going to be working on some of the stuff from Mindwork Games for their new Paradise. They're making this like game out of their Paradise world, which is like this sort of post-apocalyptic Mad Max kind of world. And I'm going to be doing some figures for them
I think
for their it's not actually Kickstarter. What is that Game Found thing? I think
Game
that's what
Found
they're
is it.
doing it
Yep.
on too. Yeah,
I think I saw some of that
Um,
stuff. Did they have some of it to show at Adepticon?
yeah, they did. Yep,
Okay, yep,
exactly.
I saw it.
So doing some of that. I got like a bunch of projects I need to work on this week.
Mm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I also probably should get some models ready to come for TMX for my teaching class. So for my teaching
Yes,
models,
that's true.
that'll also
Good
be a
point.
thing I'm doing this week.
We'll have like paint. The army painter sent a whole bunch of paint, so we'll have paint and brushes for people to use in the classes. So you won't have to mess with that. So that's one thing off your plate. And of course, I'll have the make your own wet palette situation also taken
Yeah. Hey,
care of.
look, there's nothing wrong with that. I went to Dogma 48. Everybody had their full big setups. It was crazy, but I had to
Mhm.
travel light because I was on the road for like 8 days, not just
Yeah,
this trip, and for also two different work trips
to
back
bring
to back.
4 bottles of paint.
I had zero paint.
Oh,
I
okay.
had 3 brushes and my model. That's what I
Gotcha.
brought with me.
No,
That's
no.
all I needed. I worked the whole weekend off of 2 plates, like paper plates, napkins, put some water in there, put a sheet of parchment paper down.
Hmm.
We don't need to get fancy with this.
No, it'll
Okay.
do it in a pinch for
That's
sure.
right.
Yeah. Last VincyCon, how many bottles of paint did Ben bring? 6?
Like 6 or 7, yeah.
Yeah, I
And then he
think.
ended up borrowing one from me.
Yeah, that's true. That's
So
true. But
he
otherwise, yeah.
he works simple, as it were.
Mhm, mhm.
He's a mixer, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's a
Oh, yeah.
mixer.
Oh, he's a mixer. I'm not. I am, the anti-mixer. I don't know. I mean, I'm not telling him he shouldn't. I'm just saying I don't.
Yeah, no, either way is
I'm not
fine. Do
I'm
what you
not
like.
into,
I'm always a fan. Like some people like mixing their colors from like just sort of the primary set stuff like that, or a simple palette. Nothing wrong with that. Some
yep.
people like having it in a bottle the exact color they want.
Mhm.
Okay, that
Yep.
seems fine too. It's neat that you can do both.
Absolutely. So, this new game, should we talk about the new game?
I think we should talk about the new game.
Yeah.
People are champing. By the way, everyone, it is champing, not
Not
chomping.
chomping.
Horses
Yeah.
don't chomp; they champ.
Nope. Yep.
Everyone is champing at the bit
Mhm.
to hear about this. I'm sure. Yeah, what we wanted to do here. If you're listening to SNARLcast and you know nothing about Rain and Iron, so first off, there is a bunch of resources available on snarlingbadger.com and on Adam and I's channel where you can see like the basic turn loop and how it plays and kind of there's a battle report you can find on the website and stuff like that. So there's a
Mhm.
lot more supplementary information out there. We've got you covered. What we really wanted to do here was kind of give you the basics as well as kind of some behind the scenes commentary, right? Really talk about the journey of making this game and stuff like that.
I think because of the way that we've positioned the podcast, I think we honestly wanted to give them a lot of the behind the scenes, stuff because we'll explain the game so that and you can make your choice of whether you're interested in checking it out or not. But I think it's also helpful for us to talk a little bit about like kind of how it went, how we decided to do what we do, things like that. And I think that that's going to be relatively helpful for folks as well, and hopefully at least slightly interesting.
So let's lay down the basics here first. What
Mhm.
the heck is this thing? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Rain and Iron. It is the standalone, that is important. We'll come back to it in a
Mhm.
minute. Sequel to our first game, Rain in Hell. Very quick story. The demons escaped hell. That happened at the end of
Finally,
the last set of narrative adventures that we put out in Snarl.
2024.
That's right. And when they got back to Earth, they were expecting humans, but what they found, because when the door closed, it was like a bold group of, sort of medieval type heroes who had closed the portal to hell.
Mhm.
When they got to Earth, what they found was a bunch of robots, because it turns out time works differently on the mortal plane than on this, and there are no more humans left. So the game is fundamentally robots versus demons, because the demons came out and were like, "Tell us where the humans are," and the robots are like, "They're all gone," and they're like, "We don't care. Then we'll just kill you," because they're demons, right?
Sure.
And they're determined that there are still some humans around. They're going to find them. So it's robots versus demons. The demons are the demons you know and love from Reign and Hell. With some minor tweaks and stuff for balance and things like that as we went on.
Mhm.
And the robots are all new. And the demons are mainly a melee force. The robots are mainly a ranged force, but the focus is the same. It is a fast, brutal, miniatures agnostic, sci fantasy is what we call this, because it's blending the two together.
Yeah.
Sci fantasy skirmish game that has solo, co-op, and skirmish play, versus play. Okay. For 2 to 4 players. So there you go. That's the basic breakdown.
Well, technically 1 to 4 players.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, sorry. 1 to 4 players. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Because
'cause
you
you
got
can
solo.
play-
Yeah.
yeah.
Duh.
So, is it
Yes.
1 to 4?
You just checking on the back of the book to see if we put the right number on there?
Well, it doesn't. It says the back of the book says is a
Oh,
standalone
for
sequel
one to 2 players. Yeah, technically you can do it.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can, it's your game. You could try to figure out a way to make it work for 4 players, but it is technically designed for 1 to 2. But nonetheless, I mean, how many people you really need to play in the game? That's what I want to know. So, the idea basically, at some point, and I guess I don't remember this 100%, but at some point, I swear the name Rain and Iron popped into my head during a conversation you and I had some time back.
Yeah, we knew this is where this was going for a long time. So, here's the first background. I'm sure the quick question people have is like, why robots? So many years back, right? We had discussed, like, once we decided we've published Reign in Hell, and pretty immediately people asked, like, well, are you going to do an expansion or something like that? And we were like,
that happened very soon.
Blah, blah, blah. We were like, whatever.
Mhm.
So we did do a little solo and co-op sort of expansion through the Oculus Sphere, right?
Mhm.
And around the time we wrote the Oculus Sphere, and I had to construct a narrative for that, we talked about where we wanted the story to go long term. Like, everybody's sort of statement was, oh, you should do like, a war against heaven. It should be like angels versus demons. And I'm not going to lie, like, that would be a perfectly fine idea, but I find that pretty uninteresting. Like, it just feels so predictable.
We've always kind of intended the demons to not really be biblical demons. Like,
that's right. They're just creatures from another dimension.
Right. We as humans, bumping into them from time to time, have referred to them as demons within our, religious beliefs and things like that. But these are not actual demons. They're just like these creatures that come from this dimension, and they mess with us and yada yada, and they want to take our soul energy and stuff like that. But that doesn't make them literally, like Lucifer and yada yada and all that jazz.
Yeah. There's no Lucifer. There's no, Azrael and stuff like that. Yeah.
And so because of that, the idea of adding angels, we were always like, like we knew we kind of wanted to step back into this at some point and do something different. Not necessarily just because we were like, oh, well, because I don't know. It honestly, I think partially it came down to, we knew if we made the game something that would pit melee versus range.
Yeah.
Like that, like you get that in every game. Every game you're going to have sometimes where like there's a meetup when all of a sudden a melee guy goes up against a range guy or vice versa. And then you have to figure out how that's going to work. But when the factions are what separates that. And you're like, these guys, like, if again, in this game, if you wanted to, you could play demons versus demons. Just,
of course. Yeah. I was just saying,
robots versus
Iron,
robots.
You can play demons versus demons and robots versus robots. That is
exactly.
Valid.
But it's a very interesting thing, at least to us, to go, okay, but what if we wanted to go robots versus demons?
What if that's the baseline expectation?
Exactly. Right? And but again, also being able to play it from the co-op standpoint and the solo standpoint, so you could have 2 groups of demons going up against robots, or 2 groups of robots going up against demons, or whatever. So,
or a robot and a demon joining forces to go
I
fight.
Suppose that's also
Absolutely.
possible. Sure, why not?
Perfectly fine.
But yeah, so we knew that we wanted to do that, and then we just had to kind of figure it out. And I think in the early days of us thinking about it, I was like, I'm like, and I can't remember if it was the concept of what happens if the demons make it back to Earth and it's much further in the future than they think it is, from where we are, and there's just robots, or if it was the idea of literally the title Rain and Iron came into my head, and then I was like, well, how do we make that happen? Like, because honestly, Rain and Hell, like that, the first, and I think we've said this in the past, that first game, to me, the idea came title first, which is stupid and bad. It's not the way you should design games, but it's the way
No,
that
it's
I've been
fine. I
doing
remember
it.
because I pitched to you, right? I said they get back to Earth. There's no
Mhm.
humans. It's just robots,
Sure.
right? And
Yeah.
then you were like, pretty shortly after that, you were like, yeah, we should just call it Rain and Iron or something like that. Like that's kind of how it happened.
Mhm.
We just had from that kernel of thought, right? And then
Like,
everything else came later.
Rain and Steel probably makes more sense, or Rain and Alloy or something like that, but
Yeah,
Rain
because
and
they're not
Iron.
actually made of like old timey iron.
Right, yeah, but the cast iron robots banging around into each other and rusting.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but
Well, I mean,
the
but it's
name.
like I don't think the Iron Giant was actually made of iron, right? That kind of
No,
thing.
probably not. That's a good point. But iron has got like a strength to it. The
It
idea
does.
of,
It's a good name.
Iron Man, not made out of iron at all. You know what I mean? So,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. So, same kind of thing, a little bit. Yeah, and this is a sequel, but it is a completely standalone sequel. You do not need to have, I repeat, you do not need to have Rain in Hell to play Rain in Iron. You can just
Yeah, and let's
buy.
drill in on that for a moment because
Yeah.
we did have some conversations about that, right?
Mhm.
Like it wasn't just something we did willy-nilly. You and I talked quite a lot about, do we want to make this like a true connected sequel where people can bring in their old, demons, right?
Mhm.
And take their cabal through new adventures. And we basically decided no, because in the end, that would close off a lot of new people from just getting into the game and having a new fun adventure, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
be really complicated to design around. So we wanted to make it standalone so people could get into this game right here. You don't need to know the background, right? We give you everything you need in the book. You don't need to have bought the previous game, though if you want
Mhm.
to, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you have, thank
It's
you.
still available, always will be.
That's right. But this is like a new experience. Everything is completely self-contained here. So you're ready to go. You get this book, just like with all of our games. You buy the book, you got what you need. Right. There you go.
Now, that being said, you can use your models from the last game,
Absolutely.
but you
Yes.
just shouldn't use your actual cabal, the stats and stuff, and like where they've gotten to. If you've been playing a campaign and you've gotten them to a certain level or whatever, stays in the previous game, and you can easily take those same models from your cabal and then just restat them in the new game. And the stats aren't, especially as far as the demons are concerned, the stats aren't incredibly different. So it's not going to be reinventing the wheel either.
No, like really when you think about what changed. So because it's demons against robots, like if you're in the original game, the sort of core mechanic or function, what was happening was you were fighting for souls, right? Soul energy.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the game revolved around collecting souls and using those souls as a mechanic, right? That's not present because the robots don't have souls. They're not ensouled beings.
Mhm.
And so that is a dry desert for them.
Right.
So instead, the demons are collecting what we call charge, whereas the robots are trying to learn. So they're engaging in what's called machine learning because they're trying to learn what the demons are capable of. So both sides now has a new separate mechanic that they track and gather, as it were, and
Mhm.
throughout over the course of the game that gives them more power as you advance, and then translates into rewards and stuff like that.
Yeah, the soul energy being non-existent, but charge is like it's like it it's more distilled maybe, or maybe less distilled. It's kind of hard to say. It is definitely different, and the demons
Yeah.
find use for it, but it's not the same use that they had for souls.
That's right. The way we talked about it, sort of the way it's described in the book, is it's a little more raw, right? It's
Mhm.
still energy. It's
Yeah.
just more raw and unshaped, but they can still adapt it. But they have to be careful because demons can only hold so much of it before they quite literally explode. So
Right.
they have to be much more careful with this kind of raw. It's more powerful, but less. I think distilled is exactly the right answer.
Okay.
A source of energy, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're out there with some moonshine trying to put that in the fuel tank instead of your heavily refined ethanol or whatever.
Oh yeah,
That
no,
kind of
you're
thing.
putting some 151 in there, and that's not going to go well. But yeah, it gives the hobbyist, the modeler in you, the ability to continue to make cool demons, or to use the demons you made if you were into Rain in Hell. And then it also gives you the ability to do cool robots as well. Like
That's right.
you've got all kinds of different options. There are different types of robots. I mean, again, you have your like leader type robot, and then instead of like with the demons have a devout, which is kind of the lieutenant sort of demon. In the robot forces, they have what's known as an auxiliary, but there's actually two of them. So where the
That's right.
devout is like one demon that is underneath the leader, and then underneath both of them are all the lesser demons. In this situation, you have the what's the name of it? I can
The
never
auxiliary
remember.
and then the servitors.
No. The leader is called something else. He's not just a leader.
Oh, they're both leaders. Oh, the command model is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about in
yeah.
the
The,
robots?
the technical name is the command model, and then
Yes,
there's two auxiliaries, and then there's the servitors, which are the underlings. And the difference in building the lists as well is still like you did in Rain and Hell. You're using points to build your how many um, of the lesser demons that you bring, but there's
that's right.
not points in the servitors. The servitors, you just take a certain number, and that's it.
Correct. The robots are so like these are an important thing to say here, and this is something I am very interested in, in games and game design in general. Is the two forces are not like just mirror images of each other, or the same
Hmm.
with just like the paint and sort of serial numbers filed off, right?
Hmm.
It's they are built differently, they play differently, not just because of the range and melee thing, but because of also like how they're trying to act in the game, what their goals are, what their abilities are. The robots have a much the demons are much more individually powerful and much more individualistic. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's kind of which is fitting for what they are and what they're capable of. Whereas the robots are much more almost communitarian, I guess would you say? Like they are much more synergistic with each other, although alone they tend to be a lot weaker. So you have like these different play styles you're engaging in because the demons tend to be able to go wide, which is often advantageous for getting at various objectives and things like that in the scenarios. Whereas the robots tend to be able to move together and castle more strongly, so it can be harder to kind of pull them apart if they're all acting together.
Hmm.
So it's sort of an interesting little balance there of their two play styles.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also allows you to um again like kind of change up your modeling, and if you want to start working with a robot force, it's a very interesting kind of thing you can do. There's a lot of different models out there obviously that you can work with. We will be working up a blog so that we can tell people here's some different places to go get robots. Why not? Probably
That's right. Yes,
before
as
launch. Yeah,
always.
yeah. Yep.
And you might ask, what do the demons look like? What do the robots look like? And my answer is anything can be a demon or a robot if you try hard enough, right? Like,
If you believe in
I mean,
yourself.
seriously, we do not. You'll see in the art of the book, you will see lots of different takes on what the
Hmm.
robots look like,
Yeah.
and that's because the robots are they don't have any way that they necessarily look. What in your mind do artificially intelligent robots that took over the earth after the humans were gone look like?
Sure.
That's correct. That's what
Yeah.
they look like to you.
Exactly. As far as the art is concerned, the art on the inside of the book is done by Brandon Gillian. He goes by Runehammer quite frequently online. I first came across his artwork in One Page Rules. There's still snippets of his artwork. He used to do the covers and all the inside artwork for One Page Rules, the different downloads,
Yeah,
Grimdark
yeah.
Future and all that kind of stuff. And now they've got different cover artists, and but he's still got some art on the inside of those books that I've seen and everything like that. And it's just a very interesting style, a very kind of loose. Like it's all digitally drawn, but it's a very quick, loose style. But it has a lot of, I don't know. It's just got a lot of emotion to it, and dynamism, I think,
Yeah,
is
a
a
lot of
word.
movement. It feels very
Yeah,
fluid, right?
exactly.
I love his art in this. Um it's like, man, and what's cool is he was able to capture scenes where both you look at the demons and they feel so awesome and like just cool. And yet
Hmm.
he was also able to do that where the robots feel really cool and awesome and like the protagonist, right? Like he really was able to seat himself because neither side is the hero here, right?
Right. Exactly.
And he was able to make both of them the quote unquote protagonist of his art in several of the shots, which I dig.
Yeah. There was initially they're also we were originally going to have two artists. We were going to have one artist who drew everything from basically the robot point of view, and then one that drew everything from the demon point of view. And I still think that would have been very interesting to do. The other guy who's not Brandon that I reached out to last minute had to cancel because he ended up having another gig that he had to do that was a different thing and whatever. So then we came back to Brandon and we were like, "Can you do the other ones as well? And we'll pay you to do that as well." And he was like, "Yep." And so he was super fast and easy and a great guy to work with. And yeah, we were really happy with the artwork. The
Yeah,
cover art
wonderful.
is done by the same person who did the original cover art for Rain in Hell, and they are, I think that the cover turned out great. They, if you ever looked at the what do you call it? I get in the newspaper or magazine business, you call it the masthead, but if you just like the credits at the front of Rain in Hell, it said cover art, an awesome anonymous person who is paid for their work and who we look forward to working with again. And that is the same person that we worked with on the cover for this one. It's there's reasons why they just kind of want to be sort of anonymous, and that's fine. But we did pay them, and they're great. And so yeah, the cover you've got a cover now where you've got a demon and a robot, and they're fighting against each other, and it's very reminiscent of the first book. Drawn by the same person. The cover design is very reminiscent of the first book, slightly different color to the kind of background. We've added in a bit of little circuitry shenanigans going on. Um,
Yep.
but the font that our name is in at the bottom is in a different, more of a sans serif, a more futuristic font as opposed to like a serifed or um, I don't want to say medieval, but there's little subtle changes and things that make everything pretty
Adam
enjoyable.
takes all of this very, very seriously,
I I
audience. I
I
want you to know this.
I do, I do.
Like, it's a pleasure to work with Adam in this capacity because I cannot explain to you how seriously he takes things like the layout, the fonts, the little art choices, everything like that. It is wonderful to have a partner who is so both good at it and who cares as much as Adam does. So, like, a lot at this end, past couple of months has fallen on Adam, and he's just been a real hero. So everybody should
I
say thank you, Adam.
Well, I appreciate that. It's unnecessary. For those of you who are thinking about getting into any kind of layout or working with a person to do layout, but if you're thinking I have to take up this mantle myself because I don't know anybody that does it or whatever, the biggest thing I can tell you to do, and I hate to tell you to do it, but buy a paper printer. Buy a cheap one, like a laser printer or something. You can get I don't know, you can get like a Canon or a Brother laser printer for about 80 to $100. That'll probably do the job for you. The reason is because when you design something on the screen, you can look at it and go, "Oh, that's gonna work." And then when you print it out, you go, "Oh, wow, that font is way bigger or smaller or less readable or whatever." Your
Yeah.
screen will fool you. So you definitely, if you're gonna be making it for print, and even if you're not, frankly, you want to print it out. Like I mess around with fonts, like what the body fonts are gonna be, what the letting's gonna be between the lines, like all that stuff for like a good deal of time early on. It's not like weeks or anything like that. But there's a bunch of work that goes in it. It is so much easier when you can actually print it out at 100% size and look at it and go, "Oh, that's bigger font than I think I should have." And then you can take that piece of paper and then slide it into other books and compare it. Well, this book seems cool. Wow, my font is way bigger or smaller or whatever, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a simple technique that you can use to help do that stuff. And I do that on all of our games because again, we print them on demand. I can also tell you also, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but if not, we should definitely do a video about it or sorry, an episode about it. Yeah, really think about print on demand because
Oh,
you were
we're gonna do
saying,
a whole POD episode in the future
yeah,
for
like you
sure.
were saying before, like if you didn't get into Rain in Hell, you can get into this. And I'm like, yeah, but Rain in Hell is still available because we never sell out because
That's right.
they print it when you demand it. That's how it works. So what kind of
I think
things? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think what people probably want to know is like, what's the same, what's different, what's
Yeah,
unique about this
exactly.
game, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So, first of all, if you are familiar with Rain and Hell, some quick things you'll find in this game that are similar. The stats and stuff like that feel very similar. As we said, most of it is the same. You've still got a movement and a combat and a life score. Now, the robots have structure. They're not alive, but it's the same thing. It's basically how much
Basically, yeah.
damage you can take before dying.
Mhm.
The combat is roughly the same in the your combat score comparison and the dice rolls and your defense rolls and so on. Okay, so if you're familiar with Rain and Hell, that's all going to feel the same. There is some slight tweaks. The robots defend a little better since they're made of metal and not, you know, like stuff, not like stuff that gets killed as easily.
Squishy stuff.
Not squishy stuff. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah. So they're not
yeah.
full of squishy stuff. But, so there's little tweaks here and there, but for the most part. And then obviously they also have range attacks. That's new.
Mhm.
But otherwise, it's the same kind of combat stuff going on. The initiative or activation system, however you want to think about it, is still the same. So you still roll your d12s and then place them. And you kind of activate, in order counting down from 12 to 1. So if you liked Rain and Hell's activation system, and I think it's one of the better mechanics I've ever written, then you'll like it here too.
Mhm.
The same sort of rules apply. Now, what's different is quite a lot. So first of all, as we said, the robot and the way that their host works, which is the name of their group, is completely differently constructed in the way you make your host than how you make your demon cabal. Your just like the models are in it, the way they get their abilities, the way they upgrade, all of that kind of stuff. So that's all different because they're totally new and they don't act like demons. They're not demons. They're their own thing.
They
As
don't
usual,
have
Adam and I favor making design match the story, and that's just appropriate.
they don't have philosophies. Like they
That's right.
don't I mean, they have kind of
They
something
have a
that's
purpose.
right. They have purposes which are different. But they still do have some of the I mean, some of the stuff is a little analogous, but it's also different as well. And so it gives you the ability to really kind of customize what you're wanting to do with your robots, if that's the direction you want to head in, to make your host, not Cabal, and kind of go from there. And it's I think it's very interesting to see the way the differences can be tweaked and things like that, and the way
Oh
that
yeah.
the different types of robots, the servitors, are very more purpose driven, kind of, I
Yes.
think, than the
Absolutely. No, you're exactly correct. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
They're built for a purpose, right?
Exactly.
Like that's the whole idea of the thing. The what's different here again is that you do have sort of pre-generated scenarios. There are 10 scenarios in this book. The book itself, by the way, is 76 pages, so it's a little bigger than the original Rain and Hell.
But it's less than every other game we've made since.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you got 10 scenarios you can play through in here. That you can randomly roll or whatever. As well, there's also 3 narrative scenarios. So this time we actually included the story scenarios in the book. So if you want to play through the continued story that started with Oculus Spear and went through Snarl and now is going into this book, you can do so and continue kind of exploring that story. And then there's also a new concept in here since the idea of the sort of meta construct of what's going on here is you have a demon incursion into Earth happening at these first from one portal and then from different ones as they flared different portals to life. And basically, what the demons are doing is taking over territory. And so you have this kind of like territory control system where you can find special territories that can give your host or cabal, depending on what you're doing, bonuses. Now, it's not a map campaign. You don't need to like have a map and actually track the stuff. Though, if you wanted to have like kind of a little imaginary map or something or make something cool like that, you certainly could,
Mhm.
but it's not required. And so, yeah, you got this like territory capture. But other than that, there's a full campaign system, upgrades, injuries, the whole deal. But things don't die. That's still true. Just like with Rain and Hell, demons don't die, robots don't die. These are things are both very hard to actually permanently destroy.
Mhm. And the thing is, it's interesting is that the robots, like at least as far as the lore, the story is the robots have realized already at this point that when the demons get killed here, they basically end up going back to this other dimension,
Right.
what the humans are used to refer to as hell, and then just come back here.
Yep.
Whereas the robots, like, they're robots, so they can, be fixed more easily and can be fielded again and that kind of stuff. But there's still a level of attrition that you're going to have fighting against the demons. You know what I mean?
That's right. And there's sort of a little that gets explored in a little bit of in our little one of the lore snippets at the beginning of
Hmm.
the book.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're up against it. So I think what we've said is of all of our games, Rain and Hell actually has the potential to have like an ongoing through line of a story, right? Like Space Station Zero more or less was self-contained. Like it is what it is. Now there's stuff we could do with it in the future, but for the most part, that story's been told.
I mean, the branching narrative to that got you to an end point.
That's right.
You know what I
Same
mean?
thing with the story in Majestic 13. Like if you I'm not going to give away what happens at the end just because in case
Mhm.
people haven't played that game and want to, but there is a beginning, middle, and end to the story in
Mhm.
Majestic 13, right? And Death Wizards is meant to be much more open-ended. It's like a D&D campaign, right? Where you can just like your necromancer can just sort of keep adventuring, but eventually they're going to reach phenomenal cosmic power and just like
Right.
they sort of, achieve whatever their ends were. But Rain in Hell had this sort of core meta goal that the things we're all trying to do, which didn't get solved in the book,
Mhm.
right? And wasn't solved in the solo missions and so on. And it's still not answered even in this, right? Like the journey continues.
Yeah.
When you play through the narrative in here, you're going to see that, there's more questions arise. I'll say it that way.
And for people who don't know, like Rain in Hell, the first book came out in 2021 and it was pandemic time. And we made a game that did not have solo and co op play.
Yeah.
And then people were like, hey, I can't go anywhere right now. We were like, right. Yeah, we should have done that. So what we did was we made the Oculus Spear, which was the expansion, the pay what you will, pay what you want expansion that's PDF only that was available on, you could find it on our website. You click through and go to Wargame Vault. And then, as far as the story is concerned, there was a small little story snippet, basically in Snarl 2023, the first episode of Snarl. There was Rain in Hell: The Reckoning,
Yes, that's right. Which picked
which
up on that story. Yes.
and it picked up on that story, added the seventh philosophy of Hell, the seventh
That's right.
faction, which is now in Rain and Iron. So
That's right.
but then it also had two or three new missions or
Yeah.
scenarios.
3 new missions. Yeah. To
Yeah,
continue
yeah,
the
yeah.
story. Yeah.
And then in Snarl 2024, which came out this past November, we had the Rain and Hell: The Broken Door,
That's right.
right? Which was the next kind of like all of these have
Which
had
was
like
a setup, which we knew at that time we were doing Rain and Iron. So
yes,
it's sort of a direct teaser. If you were like paying careful attention, you probably could have foreseen that we were like building towards something like this,
mhm,
because it does very directly it builds toward this. I'll say it
right.
that simply.
So yeah, I think that you're very right when you're saying that the Rain In series is basically the one that's probably got the most kind of interconnectivity, and everything else we've made so far beyond that has been a little bit more one-off or self-contained.
Self-contained,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
self-contained's
Contains a
fine.
beginning,
Yeah,
middle, and end within the scope of the
exactly.
work. Yeah.
Now, this does not make Rain and Iron or Rain in Hell or any of the other. This does not make it an ecosystem game, which we will also
No,
talk
absolutely
about
not.
at some point.
And the point there was that's why we made this standalone,
Mhm.
right? Like, because to me, we can tell a through line of a story, right? Or have those beats while still making each story that's happening in that book fulfilling, and the rules and stuff like that are there. You don't need to go buy a bunch of past stuff and so on and so forth, right?
Right.
Like you can do both.
Mhm.
You can
Mhm.
have I think of how like did you read like Stephen King books when you were
Yeah.
growing up?
Mhm.
Yeah, so did I. He was always like dropping references to like the Dark Tower and like showing little bits of interconnectivity in his sort
Oh,
of stories
yeah,
and
there's
worlds, right?
there's entire like videos on YouTube about how interconnected all the different novels are. Not every novel, obviously, but there's a lot of his novels where there's a lot of belief that this takes place here and this takes like there's like it is in the same universe as the Dark Tower and stuff like that. And here's the
Yeah,
reasons
yeah,
why
yeah.
and that kind of jazz and whatever. But yeah, this is not completely in a vacuum. He has kind of fed this to some degree.
Absolutely. But yet, if you pick up it,
Mhm.
it's a self-contained
Yeah,
novel.
absolutely.
You don't need to know what the Dark Tower is, right? You just
Mhm.
won't. That little reference will just pass you by and life goes on, right? And that's kind of how I think of this, where we can have some interconnectivity, some interconnected, threads, but they're
Mhm.
not they're not how do I want to say this? They're not like supporting threads or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they're not load bearing threads. Does
Right,
that make sense?
exactly.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
there you
yeah.
go.
They're threads,
You
but
can
the house will stay up if you decide against using them. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
if
get
you
it.
don't know what they are, it's no big deal, right? That's
Right,
absolutely right.
exactly. But for us, it's I think also slightly more interesting just because it does allow like we get a little bit of cake and eating it too. We can make our like standalone games that are one-offs and things like that and whatever. But then we can also keep working on this. Now the question is that in another 4 or 5 years, will there be another Rain In? I don't know. That's a good question. We don't actually have that plan. But I mean, The thing is that there probably could be if we wanted to.
Adam doesn't have it planned.
That's a good point. That is a good point. I have not necessarily made all the meetings. So yeah, but nonetheless, I think that there's a benefit. Like we didn't want to do. I can absolutely guarantee you, we didn't make Rain and Iron because we were out of ideas. And we're like, well, crap. I guess we could just make a
God,
sequel.
No, it was actually a bit of a discussion. Like, to be clear,
oh yeah,
there are two other, I think, really hot ideas that you and I both like that are going to be the next two major games, and we are both actually really excited about them. And they're not I'll just say right here. So if you're listening to this, I'll just give the game away with this part. They're not in any way connected to any previous work we've done. So there you go.
They're also not in the world of the Dark Tower or It either. So
that is also true.
It's true.
But what we decided, we had a long discussion. Like, do we want to do one of those, or do we want to do this year? Ultimately, it came down to like, this was our fifth game, and so it seemed like a fun time. Like, for the fifth game to do the kind of standalone sequel and stuff like that. It just felt, I don't know, it felt right to me.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of a milestone. And so we're excited. I mean, really, really excited to bring this out to people. I think it's like, we did a lot of playtesting with this, and I had just legitimate fun watching people play this game and playtest this game. And I think they had a really good time. So, I think people are going to enjoy it in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Here's a question I've got for you.
Yeah.
It was tricky, I assume, to figure out how to best, I hate to use the word balance. I just made a video recently.
No, sure.
But like, what was the tricky part about having an army that just relies on melee fighting against an army that just relies on range attacks?
Well, Adam, you know what they say, that it's tough to rock a rhyme to rock a rhyme to rock a rhyme that's right on time. It's tricky. Tricky. Everybody says
was that Milton? I think that was Milton.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, you didn't believe me when I first proposed this.
There was some dubiousness. I'm not going to lie.
Just a little bit, since this is the behind the scenes podcast, I'll share this fun little note about Adam and I working together. So of the two of us, like, I'm the one that's like, let's do the crazy thing. And Adam's like, maybe not. Let's go half as far as that. It's like,
sure.
He pulls me back in a good way. Like, it's a good balance. Right. And what I'm always looking for when I'm doing these rules is like, what interesting challenge in rules writing can I give myself with this one, right? So, like, as we've talked about before with Majestic 13, it was like, can we do a one-on-many game, right? Where there's like one big enemy and you're playing with a standard team and so on. What does that look like? And so on and so forth, right? And certainly when I came to you and I was like, here's the pitch. This side's going to be all melee and this side's going to be all ranged. Because that wasn't part of it. Like, that wasn't necessary to the sketch. Like, obviously Rain and Hell was purposely all melee. But when they came to Earth, we could have just like given the demons now the ability to throw fireballs around or something, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The original plan was robots versus demons, not melee versus range.
That's right. Mm-hmm. But I said, I think we need to stay, like, my belief was we needed to stay true to the what the demons were, which is like, they want to get things in their claws and catch them and rip them apart, right? That's just kind of the nature of their thing. They don't make ranged attacks, so we're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And the robots, being robots, have guns and like use guns because of course they would. Because if you can engage at range, it's always better to engage at range. That's why we build tanks that can shoot things that are like 4 grid squares away, right? Not put like sharp pointy sticks on the end of tanks and then drive them at the enemy.
Right. Yeah.
At any rate, you were a bit dubious, and I think that it was tricky to balance it. So what I had to do was sort of design a curve where the demons were able to survive at a certain rate, and as they lost models, still potentially increase slightly in their capabilities, right? So if you think about plotting their capabilities and time on an X and Y axis, I had to give them a certain curve, right? Mm-hmm. And then make sure that the robots curve went in the sort of it intersected that, not in the opposite way, but in an orthogonal way, where they're then needing to move in a different direction. In the end, I do think we got there. It took a little bit of tweaking back and forth, because the problem is you could very easily end up where like the range people just shoot them all dead before they get there, or the melee people just get to them and then rip them apart and they don't have anything to say about it, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't want either of those outcomes. And that, by the way, that is not what happens. and I'll approve it. Go watch the battle report. Like it's
Right.
crazy. When I was recording the battle report, I was so happy with it because it did exactly what happened in all the playtests where it was like turn to turn, activation to activation. It was like, oh no, the robots are going to win. Oh no, the demons are going to win. Oh no, the robots are going to win. Oh no, the demons are
Hmm.
going to win. And it just goes back and forth so hard, so many times. I was like, I don't know. I don't know who's going to win this game. And I'm the one playing it.
Which is good, you know.
Yeah. And so it was tricky to balance, but yes, effectively what we did is put a lot of investment and playtesting into the capability curve over time so that they balanced appropriately. That's the best way I can say it. So
Yeah.
everything else is honestly pretty straightforward. Like, because we knew the math of a lot of this stuff worked, right? From original Reign in Hell. Right. So the advantage of using the same core combat mechanic was that we knew how that worked.
Yeah.
And that had already been well play tested. So what it allowed Tom to do when he got to development was focus completely on the balance. He didn't need to come back to me and be like, well, wait, this core combat primary loop doesn't really work how you think it does. Right.
Right,
Which is what
exactly.
happens sometimes in the other games because he's got to test from the ground up. Here, he was able to start already like on the 50-yard line. Does that make
Right.
sense?
And Tom being lead developer, like that's what his job is to go through and run all the math and come back and go, this is where it breaks and this is the problem and that kind of stuff. And because the combat system, let's just say, or the overall play loop has been tested, and we knew that it's worked, in the past, and we've already had it's been out for several years or whatever. Then yeah, exactly. Like I was going to ask you about Tom and like what kind of did he have any struggles working on this because it was like a known like the variables were known, and was that detrimental in any way? You know what I mean?
No,
Like
it was hugely beneficial, but he was still very angry at me because I made him playtest a lot, and he's like, "This is really complicated to playtest because of all these different variables, right?" But he put the time in. There's probably a whole show on like how to do development work in the future, but like long
Yeah.
story short, he starts with spreadsheets, then he maths everything out, creates plot patterns, and then actually plays the game over and over again in lots of different configurations, right? And so there you go.
Yeah.
That's sort of like really simplifying it, but that's the basic thing. And he was very angry at me because of all the variables in this one. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's like, that's what the
Yeah.
game is.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we got there. We got there.
And I think that I'm very interested to see how people are, I'm looking forward to seeing people's hosts. Obviously, I'm always looking forward to seeing people's cabals. I always love to go to the Discord and see what people are posting. And I think that with robots, you're going to see, obviously, people are going to use Necrons. They're going to use robots from One Page Rules, the Robot Legions, as they're called. Those are great models. You have those options as well. I just typed in robot into my mini factory and found a bunch of cool robots and then sent them off to my friend Dave to have them print them for me.
I can't bash things together from just like I got out bits and like weird things. I made a little wheelie robot guy with a gun on his arm. It was super fun. Yeah, I mean, like it's great.
And the terrain will be interesting too because it'll be different than it was for Reign in Hell. You can definitely have human ruins, which are a known staple, obviously within the terrain.
Yeah, we're
realm.
on Earth.
Yeah,
this is Earth.
Turns out, this is fighting on Earth. But also the robots have like built their own structures, and they've also built stuff on top of like the ruins, and they've added to them. And there's all kinds of cool things. So I've actually got some things on my airbrush station downstairs that I need to finish up so that I can pop them into the video as well. Some terrain bits too. So yeah, I think that between that and the ability now to kind of pick and choose which direction you go, like we had people who reached out back during when we launched Reign in Hell who were like, I would really love to I'd really love to like support you and buy your game, but like I'm just not into games that are all melee.
They're all melee.
Yeah, and that was the first game was all melee, and this one now you get choices, so you can kind of do one or the other. And there were people who were like, I just don't like to game. I don't think I want to be in. I don't think I want to play a game where I'm the demon. And again, that could come from all kinds of places, and I didn't want to take the time to go, well, it's not technically like Judeo-Christian demons or whatever, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But and now you've got a choice not to do that. Now you could be the robots who shoot the demons, and that can make you happy if you're into that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a game that I'm very glad that we made. I'm glad that we also got 3 other games out since the first one, both because it helps us overall to become better game designers and such, but also because it gives us the ability to kind of stretch our brains and do different things in different directions for a while. And then it's interesting, possibly even slightly comforting to kind of come back to this and but to kind of turn it upside down a little bit and tweak things, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I do want to talk a little here about just some cool stuff. Like, I want
Mhm.
to talk a little about the scenarios. I mentioned there's like 10 different scenarios, but we use like a little more. The fun part about this is that even playing the same scenario twice, it won't play the same because it uses a more sort of generative system. Like, you're
Mhm.
not, this, everything's not contained within the scenario itself. Like, you determine the terrain separately, you determine the enemies separately, right? Then you roll and determine the actual like scenario details you're going to do. So it could be like a battle at the foundry or a resource battle or something like that, right?
Yeah, the first game, it was very scenario is this, and here's all
Self-contained.
the
Everything
yep,
was there. These
absolutely, yep,
enemies, these things. Yeah, yeah,
yep, yep.
exactly.
Mhm.
This, it's much more like variable, right? So your the terrain, your starting location, the enemies that are present, your complications, because you have like complications that can happen where things can be wild because as demons invade the earth, things are going a little wonky, right? And then even the kind of map, a fun little thing here is we don't put the base sort of starting area map or these scenarios in the book. That's available separately, like it's a separate PDF, all the scenario, the base scenarios and the map, because it'll allow us to also use other, like in the future, if we want to expand with new starting area or layout maps in Snarl or other stuff, then we can do that. So you'll have a nice little PDF packet with all the scenarios and your map that you can just either download or that come in the thing when you buy the PDF on the site.
Well, there was the scenarios are in the book also.
The scenarios are in there. I'm saying the map isn't, so we can choose to vary and have different starting
Right,
maps in the
right.
future. Right. We wanted to make it a nice little separate packet people also
Yeah.
had. So not
Yes,
flipping
yeah,
back and forth. All the scenarios are printed in the book. We
yeah,
just chose to make the map a variable thing. But there's a nice little free packet you get when you buy the book in PDF, or you can just download it from our site that
yeah.
has all the scenarios and the map there.
Mhm.
That way, you're not like, it's the worst thing in the world to be like, okay, hold on, I'm reading the scenario details. Now I need to flip back to some other part of the book to look at a rule.
Yeah.
Right. So we're solving that problem.
We kicked around the idea, the last 2 games we've done, Death Wizards and Majestic 13, we've had card decks that were also they were something you could buy. They were a nice to have, not a requirement, but it was a deck of cards. We didn't do that for this game. And the only thing we thought about doing maybe a deck of cards for would be the scenarios. But then we were looking at it and I'm like, I just don't know if we want to just make a deck of 10 cards. Like, when it's a situation where you're just shipping 10 cards and all of a sudden the shipping frequently costs more than the cards. So, what we did instead was rather than doing that, we'll just make a PDF that will also be included when you get your, like, if when you buy the game, if you buy it in print, you'll also get access to the PDF. Or if you just buy the PDF, obviously, you'll get not just one file, you get multiple files. There's the book, and then
Exactly.
there's
The
also
thing will
the
also be on our website and available for free
exactly,
download
yeah.
too.
So we'll have it all over the place for you, but we wanted to make it a little bit less attached, I guess, because of the reasons that you'd mentioned. But again,
Yeah.
it's still in there. It's just the map is separate, and then we double
The
up
instructions on how to use it are there, but the map
yep,
itself we can vary, which
right.
is a really powerful tool, right? So we're not wedded to one map now and forever,
Mhm,
which is
mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
Um
So yeah, it's I think we have to keep in mind at all times that yes, we are printing a book, but we still live on the internet. And so
that's right.
we can still, there are Lord knows there are folks that are just buying the PDF. There's still plenty of people. The majority of people seem to be buying the book, but I think we as we see the world going in the ways that the world is going and all that kind of stuff and shipping things in other parts of the planet, sometimes the PDF thing is a benefit, but at the very least, having some of the, for lack of a better word, DLC, the downloadable content, so having that stuff available in a lot of different places so you can download it makes it, I think, things a little bit more creatively freeing. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else we need to say about this?
I mean, just I'm excited for people. I'm interested, or I'm excited for people to get the game. Obviously, I'm excited
Hmm.
to see what hosts they build, what cabals they build. Exactly as you said.
Hmm.
Um, a whole part of this came out of I think we couldn't be doing this at a better time. Like, obviously, the robots are artificial intelligence, right? Like, that's what they are.
Yep.
And boy, oh boy, when we concepted this, I did not realize the world we were going to live in here in the year of our Lord 2025 was going to
Mm.
become like the year of AI,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So it just, I guess, the universe wanted us to release this game. And we do like, I'm not going to give away the whole story, but I'll say that like we don't shy away from exactly like what this thing is and where it came from and what
Right.
those robots represent.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, though, as I said, they're not the villains. The demons aren't the villains. Nobody's the hero. Nobody's the villains. These are two forces who are just have different goals, and they happen to crisscross over each other, and combat happens.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I think the idea of I just love the concept, I guess, of fantasy demons. You know what I mean? Like that, even though again, they're not like, Judeo-Christian religious demons.
Right,
But you know
right.
what I'm saying when I say fantasy demons, right?
Mhm.
Fighting against science fiction robots. I grew up on science fiction fantasy, it being one genre. When I was a kid, I watched, Thundar the Barbarian and the
Right.
Herculoids and
Mhm.
Thundercats
Mhm.
and He-Man and all of those things was like, that's a guy with a laser tank. That's a dude with a sword riding a
Right.
horse. And it's like these two things are perfectly compatible to be in the same universe, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
At some point in time, we just kind of lost the ability to blend those two together in our minds. Like everything had to be like, no, this is holy fantasy or this is holy sci-fi. And I really hate that.
Yeah.
I love the idea of just kind of mishmashing these things together. It's not new. It's going back to where the genre was. For really most of its history, 60s, 70s, early 80s, this is what it was. Science fiction fantasy novels. You'd have like, think of the covers of your old dime store novels, right? It's like a knight with a sword on top of a spaceship or something, like that was just what the covers of books look like.
John Carter of Mars.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
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 So to me, this is like a wonderful return to form of that classic science fantasy. And I think that's what motivated me to want to do this
Mhm.
more than anything. I love a good genre mashup. And yeah, so that's what this is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, I'm hoping that, you folks, if you're interested, take a look at it, and, otherwise, we've got a Discord, where you can join and, talk to that. If you just go to the snarlingbadger.com website, up in the header thing, there's a little Discord shape icon. You can click on that and join. It's also you can go there talk to us about the SNARLcast as well, but it's also the same place where we put in information, both hobby and also like rules questions stuff for all the different games. And but yeah, I, this has been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to kind of like dip back into this game, and which was our first game and which was successful for us, and people really seem to enjoy it. And I've seen some amazing stuff that people have taken the time in their lives to create based off of the stuff that we wrote, and that's just super cool in my mind. So yeah, we were very excited to kind of do this, and we're hoping that you get excited enough to take a look at it as well.
Yeah, and I'll just leave with this since we're so bad at business. The PDF alone is $12. The PDF plus the printed book is $17. Like we said, go to snarlingbadger.com. You can find all the additional resources there. So if you want to see more, we've got videos on our channels. We've got videos linked there. As I've mentioned, the battle report a bunch of times, but there's also like a playthrough, like a simple playthrough, kind of show you how everything works on Adam's channel. We've just got a lot of information out there. I do hope you check it out. And if you're interested, if you've got questions, please drop them down in the comments or whatever. If this is a YouTube, if you're watching it on YouTube, like you got questions about the game, ask. Like
Yeah.
just ask.
Hmm.
I will be watching the comments here. We will be watching the comments here. Reach out to us on socials. Like we want to, if you've got any questions about the game, we will help you out.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks for checking out this episode of the Snarlcast. We hope we were able to maybe hopefully teach you something. If you've got suggestions for future topics, hit us up in the comments, or the Discord or socials or wherever you'd like to do it. Please check out our website at www.snarlingbadger.com/snarlcast for more information and more episodes. And also check out www.snarlingbadger.com just for, this game and the other games that we've made in the past as well. Follow us on your podcast software of choice, Apple Podcasts, the other ones. I don't know. the
All of them.
Spotify. Sure. Yeah. Follow on all of them. Why not? Leave a review if you get the chance. And we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.